All right, everyone. This is Dr. Cohen with Cohen Health and Performance here. And today, for the CHP Spotlight Interview series, I am joined by Steve Ballance. And Steve is one of the co owners of Digin Baseball. They're in Gaithersburg, and they do some fantastic work with the baseball community here in Montgomery County and beyond. And I just wanted to get a chance for us to find out a little bit more about Steve, what you got going on. So if anybody wants to find Steve, you guys can find them at diginbaseball.com. That's DIGIN baseball.com. And then, Steve, when we get to the end of this, I'll let you share whatever other information you want people to know to be able to find you. But first and foremost, Steve, I appreciate you joining us. And I just wanted to, first off, find out a little bit about you. How'd you get into coaching, and what led to the start of Digin Baseball?
Yeah, first of all, I want to really thank you, Dr. Cohen, for having this opportunity for myself and Digin. It's much appreciated. As far as your question, I got started in coaching basically, if memory serves me correctly, right around 2001. So my career got cut short in college due to injury. Coaching was something that I always wanted to do. I just thought, my joke kind of has been, I thought I would do it in my early 40s after a long major league playing career. But I knew at a young age, probably middle school age, I knew that I wanted to get into coaching whenever baseball playing was done. So for me, when I got injured, it made it really simple to get into coaching right away while I was continuing school. And I've been doing it for this is like my 19th, borderline 20th year. So I've been doing it for a long time. The advantages for me getting into it early is, being able to relate to the players, high energy. My style is kind of a lot of moving around, a lot of walking, not your traditional sitting down and just managing the game. For me, I got started as what you would call like a summer ball coach, summer, fall, kind of like what Dig In is, the non-school, as I call it. I got into that for about a couple years with an older group right out of the gate. Very fortunate to get that first opportunity. And then the whole time, my whole career, I've always been a non-school ball coach. But about 2 years in, like I was saying, I became a head JV coach. And then within a couple years, I became a head varsity coach. And then with a few years from there, I became a head junior college head coach. So the only reason why I left the college game was because myself and my other co-owner, Will Frazier with Dig In, we started this. So I left the college game and went back to high school. We've been around almost 9 years now. So that entire 9 years that we've been around, I've been back as a high school varsity coach again. So not just Dig In, but year round, I'm constantly coaching the school ball level. I have a passion for it. So not only with our business with Dig In, but on the outside with whatever school I'm at, it's been 12 months a year, basically, sometimes double duty for, a long, long time now, but it's where my passion is. I've been fortunate enough to be around a lot of great players, guys that have played on in the major leagues or currently in the major leagues. So a lot of professionals to a lot of college guys, high school, the whole gamut. So really fortunate with that. And just been able to have a lot of success, right? The wins and losses kind of take care of himself. Been really fortunate. And probably the highlight, or one of the big things that people know me for was in 2009, I was the Maryland Junior College Coach of the Year. So that's a big thing. Seems like a long time ago now, but that's probably me, my coaching background in a nutshell.
That's awesome, Steve. I really appreciate you sharing that, and obviously you have a wealth of experience. And I know we had chatted previously about how you work with a lot of, and you just mentioned how you work with a lot of high school players. In your nearly 20 years of coaching experience now, what would you say are some of the biggest almost mistakes you sometimes see high school players or players around that age make?
There's kind of I try to harp on the positive more than the quote unquote negative, but the reality is for every good thing that you see a lot of high school players, there's probably equal bad things. So it kind of evens out. Just some of the things that come to my mind with that is you have a lot of guys in the high school age division, no matter what kind of level they really are, they are either really overconfident in their abilities as a player or they're underconfident. You don't see a lot of guys that really are able to inwardly or retrospectively see how they are. So you tend to get both ends of the spectrum. Both can be kind of counterproductive for them, especially when you talk about making their high school teams or their impact on the field or maybe collegiately. But even though you do get some guys that are kind of in that middle, that's probably a mistake, I would say, is guys that either overconfidence or underconfidence, however you want to say it, in the way they are. Some of the other things are like, some of the physical things that I see mistake-wise. That's not really how they play the game, but just how they go about it from a training or a strength or a fitness and or just something as simple as stretching. One of my pet peeves that I see a lot of high schoolers make is they'll just try to run right into the activity or start early. They'll try to just take BP and just set the tee and just start swinging wildly. And that's one of the things that really is a hot button for me, because as you know, in your world, how quickly are you going to tweak your back, pull an oblique, just something like this, especially as guys get a little bit older. And I just feel like in high school, guys are so much susceptible to certain injuries of what they do. So that's another mistake that I see guys make. And I'd probably say the last one that I would see that I would mention would just be communication. Some high school kids are really good at communication, some aren't. And there's a lot of different ways to communicate. Some high schoolers take the easy way out. When it's a tough communication, they'll go to more of the text messaging as opposed to a phone call or things like that. So we try to coach our guys up on communication, because a lot of our higher end guys are dealing with college coaches now. So how they communicate, the way they communicate is important. So those would probably be like the three things that I would say are the biggest mistakes that I see from high schoolers right now.
I love that. No, I appreciate you sharing that. And even your final point, it's cool how you look beyond sort of the hard skills. Like, obviously people come to you to get help and improve their performance in terms of whatever baseball specific skill that may be sort of limiting them. But also you're paying attention to sort of those soft skills, that ability to communicate, that I know so many college level coaches, if they want to get to that next level, look for. I know we work with a lot of high school athletes as well. And I know that when we talk to, or we have to be a reference for college coaches, that's always one of the questions they ask, is just their maturity and ability to communicate. And so I love that you sort of highlight that. And to sort of shift gears, I know you also work with a lot of pitchers. Now that's a really, you can dive deep in with these folks and go a lot of different directions. But arm care is something that is a big hot topic, and are things that many pitchers are concerned with and really know that they should do. But there's a lot of different ways I've seen it interpreted. So for you, what does quality arm care look like to a pitcher? And then is it different in season versus off season?
Yeah, for me, you're exactly right. I'll start with that. I do work with a lot of pitchers. Work with all skills, all levels, but I probably do tend to, in an individual setting, work with more pitchers than anything. For myself, I was a very high-level high school pitcher, but at the next level, I was a position player. So I've been fortunate to be able to know all different aspects of the game as far as working with guys. Now, when you talk about the one-on-one with your question, there is a difference between in-season and out-of-season. One of the things that I think is undervalued or underrated, but we're starting to really see it come to the forefront in the last few years, and it makes it easier as a coach to be able to send those messages to your individual players and in like a lesson format of your teams, is just what we call, and what a lot of baseball people call, band work, about getting the scapula stronger, stabilizing them. What are you doing with your shoulders? All these things when you talk about the pitcher, to try to make a well-rounded pitcher. Now, I'm just focusing on that part of the body, but as you know, it would be everything encompassing in that. And just trying to get them the right thing. When you're in an individual setting, you're able to give them kind of a blueprint, have a dialogue with them or their families to be able to see the best way of accomplishing this. In our facility, when we're having facility training, we have the bands everywhere. We have multiple ways for them to see it. We put on the board certain exercises for them to see that give them a visual to be able to do it. What I think happens nowadays, everybody wants the finished product today, yesterday, right now. I'm like to push the envelope and get guys as good as we can, or advance as we can, as quick as possible. But there are things that are kind of what people might call old school that you have to do. If you're a pitcher, you have to be throwing the baseball. That doesn't mean you throw it every day 365, because I believe in shutdowns and break time periods, but you do have to be constantly in a form where you're playing catch every day. You're having a 10 or 15 minute session. you're working on your pitches from a short distance when you're not really pitching. And then you're limiting your bullpens or your actual game performances over, over the week. Cause I kind of look at things weekly, and go from there. So it becomes challenging because I have a lot of opinions that I would like to express to the players, but if they don't play for me directly and I'm only seeing them in a lesson standpoint, which is once a week, it's a little bit challenging, but we still want to get that across. As far as in season and out of season, it really depends on what month it is because so many players that you work with, 99% of them are from Maryland. So they do have some challenges in the colder months where they can only be inside as opposed to outside. So that training would change. Outside, of course, is what is your team structure? Who do you play for? Who are your coaches? What are their areas of expertise? What can they do? What can't they do? But if you don't, and again, not to be dramatic, but from a pitching perspective, if you don't do some of these things correctly, or at least have the time frame right, you're a walking, unfortunately, injury ready to happen. Now you can get hurt no matter how much prepared you are, no matter what your structure is. But we're trying to play the percentages of what makes you the most unlikely to be in an injury percentage. And a lot of that is common sense, I think, but a lot of it's taking it next level and just taking the extra time to do some things. Just because you're one of a few guys on maybe your team who does the extra, you know what I mean? That maybe some people would say, oh, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing those bands for 10 minutes before stretching? They can, in my opinion, let them say that because you're trying to build your foundation to be the best version of yourself. So luckily, as time has went on more, especially in my opinion, the last 5 or 6 years, now that's becoming more commonplace and players don't get that stigma like they're doing something, like they're so much better than other people. And you see that a lot now. So, but there is definitely a difference between in season and out of season.
Gotcha. I appreciate you clarifying that. And it's really cool to see how, you incorporate it into, as you mentioned, like you have them do their band work in some cases, even before they go and do their stretching or throwing for that day and all those kinds of things. I think that's such an overlooked, you're right, part of things. I know when I think of me, when I was in high school, no high school, you're a high school kid, you just want to go out there and play. You don't want to necessarily do this stuff. And that's important.
Yeah, what I would expand on that, what I would expand on that is in a one-on-one setting, if it's like a lesson, what I try to do is ask the player and their family, depending on how old they are, how they get their pitcher. And I'll do this as early as like 8 or 9 years old because I'll work with guys the whole gamut, like 6 to 22, and sometimes some professional guys that'll come in. And what I ask them to do is, let's say, for example, your lesson starts at 4 p.m. I ask them, can you get in there at 3:45 or 3:50 beforehand so that way you can start all the pre-stretching and what you call prehab. Could you do that before? So that way, once 4 o'clock goes, we go right into the actual baseball part of it. So that's what you try to do too when you talk about pitchers.
Oh, I love that. And what's really cool is even if they're working with you one-on-one, you're putting a lot of the responsibility on them because in the end, like you said, even if you're seeing them, even if you somehow could see them every day, which doesn't really happen, that's still only the hour or two that they're with you. And then there's, 22, 23 hours of the day they're not with you. So inevitably what people do usually away from us is almost always going to have a bigger impact. So you can almost teach those really good habits, which I love. And with those pitchers that you work with, just diving into them a little bit, in terms of some of the skill. Now I know there's a million things that can contribute to why somebody may have an issue on the mound, for example. But what are some, or maybe one or two common sort of issues that you tend to find when you get a pitcher that comes in to see you, maybe even somebody who has some years of throwing under their belt? So it's not like you're getting somebody fresh and green. What are some of the things you find yourself often working on with these kids?
One of the first things that come to mind immediately as I'm hearing that question is it seems to not matter in some regards what their age is. A lot of the guys that I work with for like the first time or so, you're meeting them, walking right in, is a lot of times they think they have arm deficiencies when it really starts with their legs. So many pitchers that I run into, no matter how old they are, again, their lower half is not even close, unfortunately, to being used properly. So they're putting so much extra strain on their arm. So I try to, depending on what level of baseball they're at or what age, try to communicate that with them in a way that they can understand. Having said that, I also promote, if their parents are there and are willing and it's not too crazy with the amount of people, I try to put them in a position where they can actually hear the lesson, what's going on, hear what's being said, right? Where they're there, they're not in the way, but they're there because it's just a positive then for the parents. They're hearing the messages, they're seeing how it's going, and they're able to see the reaction on their son's face. Most of the time, it ends up being a male student, where they're able to see what they were doing maybe incorrectly or inefficiently, and what was the byproduct almost immediately in some of these gains that they're seeing. And for a lot of the guys that use in their lower half, I try to keep it simple, especially with the younger player. And you say, look, your big muscles are in your legs, your smaller muscles are your arms. Let's really use our bigger muscles. So try to say kind of real generic language like that they can understand. So that's the first thing, is just lower half inefficiencies that they're doing that is then affecting, their arm, whether they're righty or lefty. And then the other thing is another thing is a deceleration, how they actually are finishing the pitch when the ball is letting out, what form they're in. So those two things are probably, to answer your question, the number one and two things I see between pitchers of all ages. And some of it is easily correctable. Some of it is harder depending on the player. But a lot of times they're hearing that type of talk for the first time, whether they're 8 or 16, because you just don't know what they've been around. Some of these guys have been around a lot of quality people, a lot of quality baseball guys. Some of them haven't. But when you get that extra one-on-one attention and time, you're able to be in a calming, controlled environment, but you just happen to be saying things that for whatever reason it's irrelevant, but they've never heard before. And then you see you see those gains, and then consequently, a byproduct, you've gained their trust, and you're like, that's why they're here, that's why they're spending the money and whatnot. But it's very exciting to see, because just like in baseball, hitting so hard, pitching is right there with being very difficult. So it's really fun to be able to see those guys get to that point. And then when they can get to that, you're seeing their coachability, and then you can really help them take their game. Because no matter where you're at in baseball as a pitcher, you can be a lot better version of what you are at that time. It's just a matter of what you're doing and who's telling you things and instructing you. So those are the two things that come to my mind immediately.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that makes so much sense. And, especially like you mentioned, like you started off with talking about how a lot of the lower body influences into things. And I totally agree, because even from our rehab standpoint for us, even if we have like an arm, like we see the medial elbow issues all the time with baseball players, for example. And a lot of times we find that, they need to work not just with a PT, but with with somebody who can actually work on the skill of throw pitching with them. Because if they're just, something's up with their technique and in the way they're driving off the mound, or maybe not driving off the mound well at all, well, they're going to be sort of arming the ball, for lack of a better way of describing it. And then that's going to put a ton of strain on that ulnar collateral ligament and the inside of that elbow. So makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I see that a lot, particularly in the younger pitchers, which I would call like 8 to 13. So elementary, middle school age. You see a lot of guys that are unfortunately really heavy and a lot of stress on their arm. So you're trying to correct that and give them drills and little things that they can do that they can do. Because like you said, if they're only in there for a half an hour or an hour in a one-on-one, there's so many more hours of the week, depending on what time of the year it is with their teams. So you try to give them stuff that they could even do at home, where that they can do, like, I don't like to call it homework, but with you, I'll say homework. That way, when you see them next time, because a lot of these pitchers that I work with, I really like to see them once a week, if possible, just because you're getting a routine. Pitchers, like a lot of baseball players, are creatures of habit, routine, and you try to do that. So there's a lot of that stuff that, again, like you said earlier, they're doing so much more away from you than they are with you. You're just trying to give them the tools.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That makes a lot of sense. And, you've highlighted a lot of things that, a lot of really good points, and a lot of definitely highlighted, to me, I'm sure anybody watching this, the advantages for a player to work with an individual coach, even if it's outside of their team. Is there anything we didn't touch on as far as that some people maybe don't think about in terms of some of the benefits of just working, of a young player working with a coach such as yourself on that individual basis?
Yeah, I would probably answer that with the first thing would be an outside the box thing. When somebody is looking for individual instruction, I would always say, you want that first time, especially if you're in the market for long term, you want that first time to really be a feeling out process. It's like that person, whoever that person is that's doing that lesson, you should be like interviewing them, because you want to see how that goes. Because unfortunately, we're talking about exchanges of finances and money. And there are going to be some places and instructors that they're just going to be, you're just a dollar sign to them. And they're just going to do certain things, and that's just how it's going to be, and go from there. I say when you're looking for someone who you're going to be doing individual instruction, and whether it's me or us at Digin or somewhere else, you want to be able to make sure that you are getting the best bang for your buck every single time. You want somebody where you can see the gains, you can understand where they're going. It's not just you go in there and we do this same old dance 50,000 times and you go from there, because there will be that plateau. I encourage, push the envelope. You want to see the player get better. There has to be places that you have to progress from one place before you can get to the next one. But you really want to make sure that that person there does have the best interest of your son or your daughter, or whatever the case may be, or your group, to be able to getting the most out of what you're doing. Whether you have the expendable income or not, you want to use your money wisely. And it's really important that person who you choose to do that lesson with and build that relationship, because it is a big thing, and these things can be lasting for a long time. Now, having said that, I think any age is appropriate. A lot of times people think when they get older is the time to do lessons, when they're getting close to high school or in high school. And I couldn't disagree. That would make sense. But if you have a player who's really serious and into the game and has some ability in your mind, then it is a good investment to get them in at any age. As long as that they have the capability to be able to be there for a half an hour or an hour and have that attention span, and you feel comfortable, you should work with somebody and give them that opportunity, because those years at 8 to 12, for example, they're setting up what's going to happen when the player becomes 13 to 18 and 18 to 20. They all play a huge factor, especially if you can tell that the young man or young woman has such a passion for the game, already loves it. Then it's a good investment, as long as you're getting with the right people.
Oh, I love that. That was, man, you answered some of my next questions, but that was perfect. No, I love that. There's so much. I appreciate obviously the transparency and just the honesty in terms of what people look for, because like you said, I mean, this is an investment people are making. A lot of times parents are making it in their child, and you know, when like any investment, you want to make sure you're getting the best return on that, and the return in this case is going to be, you know, better performance on the field. So I think that's amazing. And then obviously you're a wealth of knowledge, and I can definitely attest for Digin baseball and the great work that Steve and Will and the whole team do. But Steve, I want to hear it from you. Can you anything you didn't highlight today? I mean, I know you went over a bunch, but is there anything you didn't mention about Digin specifically? And then where can people find you? Find Digin baseball.
Yeah, I would start with answering that question with Digin. You know, we've been around. July 1st will be 9 years that we started it. And a big thing behind that for myself and Will was we kind of did our own thing individually for a while, and we're friends. And then we brought it together to be able to do more, to reach more people, have more teams, have more success, just everything. So we were able to be lucky and be very in a very good position from day one, because when people saw that the two of us were coming together, they knew that it was going to be something special. And we haven't underperformed in that regards. I would say a lot of people out there are very braggadocious in our state about what they do or what they've done. Probably in our case, we should be more braggadocious than we are. But I think, as the saying goes, the proof's in the pudding that we have the #1 organization in Maryland, and we're regarded very highly in the country. And that's top to bottom. So teams is a big factor for us. For us, it all starts and stops with the teams. Now, we have anything you can imagine with baseball, we cover it, but teams is our #1 focus, which sometimes I think people look at it on the outside as it's different. We have all levels of teams. It's not just something that you come out and you make a team. You have to be placed on a team. You have to be picked for a team, some way like that. It's not just everybody comes out and makes a team. Now, if you're doing lessons or camps or things like that, we're very, very inclusive. But for the teams, it's very specific to where they are in their career, what they're looking to accomplish, what their goals, their age, and we put it together is in regards to that. Our high school teams have been some of the most successful, not only the most successful in Montgomery County, but the most successful, if not one of, in the state for this entire 9-year period that we've had. We're very proud of all the players that have went on to the next level at the collegiate level. No matter what level it is, it's all about the fit. We've been happy for how many players in our program have made their high school teams, have been varsity players when they're freshmen, to being all-county players, to being player of the year and or player of the year candidates. So that part goes on and on. We couldn't be more prouder of that and happy with that, along with, of course, all the relationships that we've made along the way with the players and the families. One thing I do want to do to get on the soapbox real quickly, a lot of organizations, there is a disconnect between their parents and their coaches or organization. There's this friction, this buffer. To me, the way that you have more things that are copacetic or go is when we all realize we're all on the same team and we're all working for the same goal. We're going to have our differences. It could be playing time, all the things that everybody would know that's watching this or whatnot, but we all are on the same team and we all really do what's best for that player or the team. And I think sometimes that gets lost sight of because of some people's insecurities or defense mechanisms. So for us, at least for myself and Will, we think we've built that relationship with our families over the 9 years. And there's where that mutual respect is that people know. And that's why the word of mouth is so big. Now, we tend to turn down more players than we accept with our teams, but that's just a byproduct of good people out there. We like to think we're surrounded by good people. We like to think we're good people, and we have good people that come in. As far as your last part, where you can find us, like you said, diginbaseball.com gives you kind of a general overview. We have a good Facebook and Twitter following where you can follow our Digin Baseball Facebook page, and our @Digin Baseball to find some things. And if you're in this Montgomery County area, chances are somebody, you participated with somebody, a neighbor in the county. There's going to be most people that are going to know about Digin Baseball, and we want to keep this going, moving forward, and we're really happy about it. Even during these trying times, we're looking at how that we can become better and all around after we come out of it.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that, Steve. And just to close things out, I can definitely say I've interacted with a lot of different baseball coaches and people in the baseball world throughout my career, from down in Texas all the way up to now at our practice in Maryland. And, it's very obvious when you talk to Steve and find out more about Digin Baseball that they really are what they say, and that they're just good people first and foremost. And they obviously, as Steve said, the proof's in the pudding in terms of the work that they do in the community and with the young men in this area. So Steve, I just want to say I really appreciate you sharing everything that you did today. And then, of course, anybody who wants to find Steve, I really encourage you to reach out to Digin Baseball. They're great. And then most importantly, I hope everybody stays safe, stays well. Steve, really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, Dr. Cohen, I want to really thank you and your team for giving us this opportunity, and just continue to just tell everybody about all the great work you guys are doing there, and just hope continued success for everyone.
All right. Thank you so much.